Okay, so for your definite integral, so we'll be discussing the second fundamental theorem of calculus. So for the first one, it's really not that important, but if you try to read the definition of the first fundamental theorem, is that once you are able to integrate your equation, going back to your equation, original equation, so you have to derive lang, so reverse process. And I think that's what we have been doing so far in our techniques of integration. So the first fundamental theorem of calculus is not really that new to us. So what's new to us here is the second fundamental theorem of calculus. So what do we need to do here is, after obtaining the answer of your integral, so we need to apply the limits of integration. So what's new here is these values. So the lower limit a and the upper limit b. So usually if we don't have limits yet, so the integral of your small f of x is the big f of x. And since now we have your limits of integration, so ang may tabo next is we'll be applying the limits of integration in your particular integral na answer. So that's why we place the b parameter here in the first term. So meaning we need to apply the limits to your answer and then minus the lower limit in your answer again. So that's why we have f of b minus f of a. So meaning you need to substitute the value of b in the answer, then minus the value of a in the answer again. So I think that's really simple. Since we know the different techniques now, so what's left for you to do is just to apply the limits of integration. And it's really important to know how to apply the limits manually, because in the midterm exam, so you won't be able to use your calculator since it's prohibited. So same goes for the face-to-face before. So during midterm exams, so all calculators are prohibited. So only purely calculation yun na siya. So manual calculation. So no calculator. So calculators are only allowed during the final exam. Okay. So for you to be able to appreciate the definition of the second fundamental theorem of calculus, so let's try to solve different problems. So before we go to problems, so we have your different properties. So for the properties, so these are the same as your indefinite integral, so just without the limits. So you can still factor out your constants outside the definite integral. So the same as your indefinite. So you can also split it into two different integrals if you have binomials. So you can distribute dx, diba? So you can have two different integrals. So the same as before. So I think this is not new to you. So the third property is somewhat new because you get the reverse interval. so if you want to try to have a negative value, so there are purposes for this property later or in your next course, which is the higher math. So if you have a negative value, so you can just reverse the limits of integration. So from a positive value from a to b, so you now have a negative value, and then the limits of integration are reversed from b to a. So same goes. So if you want to create a positive interval from the negative one, so you can convert it backwards also. So you can have the positive integral and then switch the limits of integration again. So vice versa na siya, reverse interval. So next is your zero length. So it's obvious that if the lower limit and the upper limit are of the same value, so we automatically get 0. So remember that the formula is f of b minus f of a. So if both have the same values, so let's say you're going to evaluate the integral of x squared dx, let's say from 1 to 1, or let's say from 2 lang, 2 to 2. So the answer for this one is x cubed over 3, then from 2 to 2, diba? So f of b, the upper limit first. So 2 cubed over 3, and then minus f of a, so 2 cubed over 3, so 0, diba? So that's the zero length interval. So you can also combine intervals, so adding up intervals. So as you can see, if you have the same function, so take note that the functions must be the same for you to be able to combine them. So since the functions are the same and they have a common limit of integration, so let's say the upper limit on the first term is the same as the lower limit on the second term, and again, since both functions are the same, so you can combine them into one interval. So f of x dx, so from a, so notice from a to c. Okay, from a to c. So super basic ra kaya ang mga properties. Alright. So we can now proceed with the examples. So most likely these are just the definite integral. So again, what we'll be doing first is you will be integrating before applying the limits of integration. So di ba murag ang bag-o ra jud dire, the new thing here in your equations are the limits of integration. So the rest are the same. So you'll still be needing the same concept of integration or same techniques of integration. So upon getting the particular integral or the answer of the integral equation, so that's the time that you'll be applying the limits of integration. So usually this is the introduction topic for the applications of your integrals. So such as the area, the volume, the surface area. So we'll be utilizing the definite integral concept in the second half of the semester. Okay. So let's try to solve the problems. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll be having 5 problems. So again, we will be solving each manually. So I think it will take time since we are solving manually. So if you want to verify later your answers, so there's a button in your calculator. I think it's below the alpha button. So the symbol for the definite integral is in this icon. Okay. So you put your equation here. So take note that it should be in terms of x. And then put the lower and the upper limit. So most likely the value of the answer for definite integral are purely numbers, or it's an exact value compared to your indefinite. So we have an equation plus c, an equation plus c. So here in definite integral, so you'll be having an exact value. So number, it could be pi, it could be 3 point something, so it's an exact value. So there's no plus c anymore in the definite integral. Okay, so let's start with number 1. So again, the first step is to always integrate your equation. So this one is super simple, so we can just integrate immediately. So 4x is 4 times x squared all over 2, and then minus 6 times x cubed all over 3. So how do we write the limits of integration after getting the final answer? So create a long line on the right side in this manner, then the negative 1, and then positive 2 on the upper limit. So simplifying your equation, so this becomes 2x squared, okay, minus 2x cubed. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, then 6 divided by 3 is 2. So x squared, x cubed. So again, the limits of integration is from negative 1 to 2. So again, the formula is f of b minus f of a. So you really don't have to follow the formula as long as you know that you need to apply the upper limit first in the answer and then minus it with the answer in the lower limit. So pwede ra siya nga, you don't have to memorize f of b minus f of a as long as you know the concept that you need to subtract the upper limit with the lower limit. So solving manually, so the first one is f of b. So we have 2 times 2 squared, then minus 2 times 2 cubed. Okay, then minus, so we have 2 times negative 1 squared, then minus 2 times negative 1 cubed. So that's how you solve it manually. So 2 times 2 times 2, that will be 8. Then 2 to the power of 4, that will be 16. And then minus, so this one is positive 2, so negative 1 squared is 1. Then the other one is negative 2 times negative 1 cubed, that will be positive 2. Because negative 1 cubed is negative, and then negative times negative is positive. So you now have, this one is negative 8, then minus 4. Then the final answer is negative 12. So this is the final answer. So super easy ra siya, diba? So the new thing here is you just have to apply the limits of integration. So again, if you want to verify your answer, so you can use your calculator, but again, di lang siya pwede calculator during the exam. But again, if you want to verify it, if you're answering your problems, or if you're trying to practice definite integral, you can always verify your answer from your calculator. So again, the button is found below the alpha button. So that's for Casio 991 ES Plus. Okay. So again, don't forget that you should let your variables be in terms of x. Okay, moray kaya sa calculator. Okay, so do you have questions or clarifications? Okay, so far wala pa. Okay, so let's try to proceed with the next example. So again, we have to integrate manually. So x to the power of 1/3. So this is x to the power of 4/3 all over 4/3. Then plus x to the power of 7. So shortcut lang siya, di ba? So if you're quick in adding fractions, so you'll be able to determine that upon adding 1 to the certain fraction, so wala siya ang answer. That will be the answer for your fractions. Okay, so again, next is we write the limits of integration in the final answer. So that will be from 1/8. Okay, so simplifying first before applying the limits of integration. So this becomes 3 times x to the power of 4/3 all over 4. Then plus 3x 7/3 all over 7. So that will be from 1 to 8. Okay, so next is we'll be applying the limits of integration. So starting with the upper limit. So we have 3 times 8 to the power of 4/3. Okay. All over 4. Then plus 3 times 8 to the power of 7/3 all over 7. So that will be from the first limit of integration, the upper limit. So now minus the lower limit. So this is 3 times 1 to the power of 4/3 all over 4. Then plus 3 times 1 to the power of 7/3 all over 7. So notice on the right side, so it's super simple since this one is 1. So we can get 3/4 immediately and 3 over 7 because the cube root of 1 is still 1. So again, if we try to represent this one in radical expression, so this becomes cube root of 1 to the power of 4. The other one is cube root of 1 raised to the power of 7. So cube root of 1 is still 1. So 1 times 1 times 1 is still 1. So maskin 1 million pa siya ka 1, di ba? So the only problem that we're going to find here is simplifying the first term from the upper limit. Okay, so let's try to evaluate the first term. So in radical expression, so this becomes 3 cube root of 8 to the power of 4 all over 4. Then plus 3, then cube root of 8 to the power of 7 all over 7. So again, this one is minus 3/4 plus 1 over 7. So if we try to get the cube root of 8 to the power of 4, so if you're quick with if you have a technique for that one, so the answer of this one is 16. So ano 16 man? So if you try to break it down even further, so 3, then cube root of 8. So we can have 8 cube, then times 8. all over 4. So notice that 8 cube is a perfect cube, and then 8 is also a perfect cube. So that will be 8 times 2. Diba? So mga siya pinaspasay ba? I mean mga techniques lang. Techniques on how to solve kind of faster. So the other one is 8 cube root of 8 to the power of 7. So the answer for this one is 128. So how did I do this is times cube root again. So notice that we can create 8 cubes. So 8 cube, then times 8 cube, and times 8. So 3 plus 3 plus 1 is 8 to the power of 7. So the three factors are perfect cubes. So 8 cube is 8, 8 cube is 8, 8 is 2. So 8 times 8 times 2, that's 128. So on the right side, so if you have a shortcut for this one, so this one is 22 all over 28. So that's the shortcut, but it's not simplified. So again, what I did here is I just cross multiplied, then multiplied the denominator. So 21, this one is kung ano siya, 25 dahil. 25 over 28, so 4. I think that will be your only problem in the definite integral. So you'll be solving them manually. So let's try to write it on the left sides because we don't have space anymore. So again, the first one is 3 times 16 all over 4. Then minus 3 times 128 all over 7. Then minus 25 over 28. So 3 times 16 over 4. So this one is 4. Then the first term is 12. So 128 divided by 7. So dili siya pwede, di ba? So what we need to do here is we'll be multiplying 3 by 128. So this will be 384 over 7. So correct me if I'm wrong. Then this one is 25 over 28. Okay. So next is we're going to combine 12 minus 384 over 7. So again, cross multiply, diba? So this becomes 12 times 7 is 84. 84 minus 384 all over 7. Then minus 25 over 28. So the first term coming from f of p, this is negative 300 all over 7. And then minus 25 over 28. So removing the brackets, so we have negative 300 over 7 minus 25 over 28. So this time we're going to cross multiply again. So taas kayo, no? So 300 times 28. So ato lang siyang i-calculator as of now so that we won't be wasting time. So this one is negative 8,400. Then 25 times 7, I think this one is 175, if I'm not mistaken. So 25, so then all over 7 over 28. So 7 times 28 is 196. Okay, so 8,400. Then since both are negative, so we can add them up. So we have 8,575 all over 196. So if you're going to look at the final answer, so you still need to observe if you can still simplify the fraction. So I don't think you can simplify this one even further. Or if you can simplify this one, so I think this one is divisible by divisible by 7 man siguro ni, or so I'm going to try the calculator lang para we can move ahead. So the answer for this one is negative 175 all over 4. So I think this one is divisible by 7. So this is the final answer. So if this one is not solved manually, so it's super simple, diba? Because you can just plug it in the calculator and you'll be having the final answer immediately. So simple kay siya if we have the calculator, but again, since we don't have the calculator and you need to provide solutions during the exam, so we'll be going back to the basics, Jude. Okay, so do you have questions or clarifications? Okay, so I think there's none. So murag fail na ko sayop ko. Dire day. So fail ako ang imong question kay dire no. So plus ni dapat sakto day. So since kani plus man ni siya, so ito lang i-adjust kamay. So puro ni siya so this one is plus, then plus. So that will be 384 plus 84. So I think it's 468, no? So 468. Then this one is ato sa nang erase ka dito. Okay, so 400. So this one is 468. So 468 times 28. So 13,104. Then minus 175. So the final answer is 847.28. So I think this one is So you cannot simplify this one anymore. Kung i-check ang calculator. So again, since you'll be solving manually, so you can use long division to get an exact value. So 1 over 7 is dili siya 3 over 7. Sa dapit. Ika-fourth nga equal sign. Bitaw di rin, no? So this one is 3, 7. Daghan na ginig sayop ta. So this one is 3, 7 day. So 3/4 and 3 over 7. So this one is 12. 21 plus 12 is 33, no? So ato po dyan siyang i-responde. So this one is 33, no? Sakto? So 33, 33. So 33, 33. So 33 times 7, that's 231. Then minus the other term. So this one is 12873. So divided by 28. So mag-simplify siya into. So i-check lang ninyo ang answer kay I think the correct answer is kaning 65 man siguro. Okay, mo sa imong gawa sa calculator. Kailangan to lang i-verify. So marag mo dyan na siya ang kontra sa definite integral. So since you'll be solving it manually, so the mistakes will be in the simple process. So pareha na ako, diba? So instead of 3 over 7, so I wrote 1 over 7. Then instead of the operation being addition, so I changed it to minus, diba? So mura na siya ang inyong problem for this topic. Okay, so any more clarifications? So murag ang answer is 65.68 in the calculator. So lang kuan lang, just try to verify lang. Okay, if we have 1839 divided by 4, so it gives us 459.75 niya. Maraglayo na kayang answer. Ang asa dapit? Kanino? So ato ning Osborne. So 196 gyapon siya, no? So 196 gyapon. Let's try if we have the correct answer now. So sakto na siya. So muna siya ang magawas na answer. So 839, then we have the denominator as ano? So denominator is 28. Then again, using long division, you can get the exact value. So that's 65.68. So kana correct na siya. Okay, so magnadugay ta sa number 2. I think that's for the number 2. So the answer is correct now. Okay, so in number 3, so this one is super simple. So again, we can take the constant outside as per property. So the integral of sine x with respect to x, so from 0 to pi. So the integral of sine x is cosine, negative cosine. So this one is negative cosine x. So again, that will be from 0 to pi. So we have negative 3 cosine cosine x from 0 to pi. So applying the limits of integration, so upper limit first, so 3 cosine pi, then minus, then negative 3 cosine 0. So if you don't have knowledge in your quadrantal angle, so that will be a problem. Okay, usually if you know the shortcut, so the quadrantal angle for cosine, so cosine 0 is 1, so this one is equal to 1. Then cosine pi, the opposite of the 0, so opposite, the other end of 0 is 180, diba? 180 degrees, or pi. So this one is equal to negative 1. So we have negative 3 times negative 1 minus negative 3 times 1. So you have 3, and then minus negative 3. So we have 3 plus 3. So the answer is 6. So that's the final answer. So again, if you want to verify this one in your calculator, so just make sure that your mode is in radians, because since you are dealing with a pi nga limit, so pi should be in terms of radians. So labi na if you're dealing with trigonometric functions. So always make your mode in radians. So kanagay marag, so if this one is the screen in your calculator, so instead of letter D, dapat naka letter R siya. Because if it's D, so meaning it's in degree mode. So the angles should be in degrees. So if it's in radian mode, so the angle should be in radians. So pi over 3, 4 pi over 3. So if it's in degrees, so you can simply just plug in sine 30, di ba? So muna siya in degree mode. So if you're dealing with pi symbols, so the mode should be in radians. So yung button na is shift setup lang. Shift, then plus setup. Then I think it's number 4 in the calculator. All right. So questions. So let's verify if the answer is correct. So it's correct. So it's 6. Okay. So this time is we have this problem. So if you're going to think that you're going to use algebraic substitution because you have a square root function, so pwede rasad, but there's an easier way. So you can always use u sub because the degree here is higher compared sa degree sa outer. So let's try if this one is this can be represented as the du later. So let u be the value inside the integral symbol. So x squared plus x. Then getting the derivative, so you have 2x plus 1, di ba? Then dx. So jackpot, di ba? So the outer term, 2x plus 1, is the derivative of u. So meaning we can have this one as the integral from 0 to 4, then the square root of u du. Okay, so the integral of square root of u, so in terms of exponential form, so this is u to the power of 1/2 du. Okay, so we now have, so plus 1, so this becomes u to the 3/2 all over 3/2. Then simplifying is we have 2u 3/2 over 3. Then bringing back the value of the u parameter, so we have x squared plus x the power of 3/2 all over 3. Then apply the limits of integration, so from 0 to 4. So starting off with the first limit, so that will be 2 times, so 4 squared plus 4, then 3/2 all over 3, then minus the second limit, which is 0. So always verify if you can still get another value even though the limit is 0, diba? So basta hindi dili siya 0. So you have 0 squared plus 0, then to the power of 3/2 all over 3. So obviously 0 times 2 will be 0. So everything on the other term will be 0. So we now have to deal with the first term now. So we now have 2 times 16 plus 4 raised to the power of 3/2 all over 3. So that will be 2 times 20 raised to 3/2 all over 3. So in exponential, in radical expressions, so this is 2 times the square root of 20 cube all over 3. Okay, so 20 cube is 8,000, di ba? So 20 cube is 8,000, so 20 times 20, that will be 400, then times 20 again, that will be 8,000. Or if you don't want to, or if you want to make your lives easier, so you can break down 4 times 5, di ba? So this one is 4 times 5. And then cube, di ba? All over 3. So you're going to have 2 times square root of 4 cube times 5 cube all over 3. And then you can have this one as 4 squared times 4 times 5 squared times 5 all over 3. So notice that 4 squared is perfect square, 4 is perfect square, 5 squared is perfect square. So this becomes 2 times 4 times 2 times 5 square root of 5 all over 3. So 2 times 4 is 8, times 2 16, then 16 times 5 is, I think it's 80, di ba? So 80 square root of 5 all over 3. So this is the final answer. So again, if you want to verify, so make sure that you go back to degree form and then use the calculator to verify if your answer is correct. So again, since upon pressing the button of the definite integral, so it's dx, diba? So again, don't forget that all your all your variables should be in terms of x. All right, so questions or clarifications? So, wala tayo sa'yo pa ni or na pa? Okay, so I think so far it's the correct answer, no? Okay, so let's try to proceed with the last example. So this one is can be solved using u sub still. So let u be equal to sine x. Okay, notice that the sine x is na siya cube nga power, di ba? So usually what we discussed the last time is you always let u be the higher degree. Okay? So of course, it doesn't work always that your process is always u sub. So sine 2x. So again, derivative is du is equal to 2 cosine 2x dx. So notice that since it's only 2x, then we have 2 here, so we still need to divide everything by 2. So this is du all over 2. Then cosine 2x dx. Okay? So this is represented by du over 2. Then this one will be u cubed. So the integral becomes, so from 0 to pi over 4, then sine, so instead of sine cubed 2x, this becomes u cubed, then times du all over 2. So getting 1/2 outside the equation, so you now have integral from 0 to pi over 4, then u cubed du. So basic formula, so this is u to the power of 4 all over 4. But then bring back the value of the u parameter. So this is sine to the power of 4, 2x all over 8. And then apply the limit of integration. That's from 0 to pi over 4. Okay. So this time is we apply the limits of integration. So starting with the upper limit. So we have, so of course the degree fourth, the fourth degree, the exponent 4 can also be expressed in this manner. So you can have sine 2 times pi over 4 and then raised to the power of 4, diba? For you to be not confused. Okay, since we are computing manually. Then I think in calculator, in means of calculator, so I think there's no sine to the power of blah 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 then x, diba? There's no such function in the calculator, but you need to express it as sine something and then enclose it with a parenthesis, then raised to a certain degree or power. Okay, so next is the lower limit, so that will be sine 2 times 0, then raised to the fourth degree all over 8. Okay, so if you know the quadrantal angles, so sine 0 is 0, di ba? So maskin raised to the power of 4 pa siya, so everything on the other term is 0. Okay, so we now have to deal with the other term now. So this becomes sine, and then so 2 times pi over 4, so this becomes pi over 2, and then squared all over 8. So sine pi over 2, so that will be 90. So again, it's a quadrantal angle. So sine 90 is 1, diba? So sine 90 is 1. So 1 squared is still 1. So again, sine pi over 2 or sine 90 is equal to 1. So the final answer is 1/8. So muna siya ang answer. So let's try to verify using the calculator. Okay, so I think the answer is correct. So I think that's all for the midterm exam. So that's as far as we can get through the topics for the midterms. So do you have further questions or clarifications?